Work, as we know it, is transforming. Demographics, the global flow and dynamic of talent will change. While some societies are aging, others are getting younger. But every age group and every job is experiencing the impact of technology. Small businesses are still the backbone of most economies, generating positive social impact through entrepreneurship. Transitioning to greener models of production for companies of all sizes and limiting consumption will be good for jobs, as well as for the global economy. Innovation and entrepreneurship are critical factors to value creation across sectors and all enabled by technology. Technology can and will destroy some jobs, but has great potential to create countless others. Positive transformation is closely tied to our capacity to respond to what's ahead. The ability to learn, create, and adapt will define the winners of the 21st century.
Well, thank you, Annalise. That was fascinating and a great kickoff to our panel. Given we have short time and so much to discuss, and this is such an important topic, I want to jump right in and not belabor introductions, which are all in the app. As we listened to Annalise's observations and watched the movie, clearly there is so much in the world on the job growth front that is not just the province of government or just the province of the private sector, but really a partnership and a global goal and problem to develop and drive inclusive growth. Our host country is represented by Andrew on this panel of the PIF, and I wonder if I can ask you to kick us off on how you think about driving inclusive growth, and in particular, the challenges, as we saw in the video, of driving growth when the nature of work is changing so much.
Well, thank you, Sheila. I would say that from the top view that we just heard is the 21st century and job creation is the domain of governments and politicians. In fact, platforms for politicians is to actually create jobs. So that's a winning political argument. But the complexity in job creation in the digital century, when you throw in the tipping points of ESG that we've been focused on at this conference, and if you look at the geopolitical situations on supply chains, then top-down national industrial strategies for the 21st century have to be human capital-centric and training and education-centric. And my fellow panelists are going to talk a lot about that. But we've got to keep remembering, as much as I like listening to bankers and people who provide financial services, we actually consume goods, products, real things. Okay, we're sitting on real chairs. We're in a real auditorium. And that means the movement of goods in the digital age has to be based on quality, not just quantity. The human experiment and lifestyle. So Vision 2030 here in Saudi Arabia, which I'm very privileged to be a part of, is all about, I've got an oil economy, but I've got a new century. And a visionary leader and a visionary government working with the private sector is creating new institutions for public-private partnerships to actually invest in the human capital, to invest in the training, the digital skills, in the headwind of job elimination by automation. The last 10 years, jobs are disappearing. 30% of all professions can be automated. Soon, within 5 years, 60% of all professions can be automated. That's a very scary thought if you're managing a workforce. So how do I transition, that word transition, okay, to this new type of work, okay, with the COVID experiment now bringing digital ahead of itself? Here in the kingdom, we're very digital. We are working on new energy. We are working on a top-down industrial strategy for the 21st century on quality. in sectors like food and agriculture, water, medtech, new energy, defense, cyber, and digital. I think that's the type of approach, and business needs to be right there at the table, because government alone cannot handle this complexity. And Larry Fink said it earlier, inclusive means everybody has to be at the table and get the power of many.
Thanks so much. Actually, that's a great segue to ask our politician on the panel, Maliki, how you think about it. I mean, Singapore has been a model of that kind of partnership and that kind of growth for many years. And many countries and many people in the audience are familiar with Singapore and have seen ways that others have tried to emulate some of that drive.
Sure. Yeah.
What do you see going forward in terms of how Singapore approaches these issues?
Well, thank you very much. We've had a very short history, but in that history, we've done quite remarkably, I would imagine, to look at how you transform a third world country into a first world with industrialization and continuing to be able to look at opportunities. And one of the things that has driven Singapore is really the recognition that we don't have natural resources, and the only resource we have is actually human capital. So human resources is the key. But as we move along in any developing country, you need to be also mindful of changing demographic profiles. And Singapore is fast aging today. But Andrew spoke about human capital. We are now also investing significantly on human potential. You have to invest in R&D. You need to be able to look at what your people are capable of doing because of the transformation that's happening around them. And with an aging population, you also need to invest in the human potential at the later ages, what you are capable of doing, because otherwise you will be having a pool of resource, 50, 60-year-old feeling displaced. And that's the last thing you want to do. And so when we talk about partnership between the government and the private sector, it's really about looking at it collectively together and involving not just the employers, but also the trade unions, because they are the ones who are very important. These are the labor unions who will have a role to play in galvanizing the workforce to say that you need to train, retrain, train again, and retrain again, because that's really important. From government's perspective, the ability and willingness to invest in resources is critical too.
Thank you. Actually, that train and train and train again makes me think of the wonderful work that's been done at the Kuwait Investment Authority. I mean, you're well known among your employees for offering initial training and then training at later stages in their career. Can you talk a little bit about how that affects both those employees, but also your ability to retain great people and really develop them within Kuwait?
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. Kuwait Investments Authority, which is known KIA, it's one of their main strategy is to focus on human capital growth and sustainability. And the KIA has been investing a lot of money in human, just whether they are staff of KIA or they are just like Kuwaitis, And we run that through different programs. The program number one is the MBA program, which we ask people to just go and pick one of those top 20 universities around the world, bring me, you're accepted there, and then we'll scholarship all that program, and then you don't have to be part of KIA or part of any Kuwait society, whether private or public sectors. And then it's been running for years and years, which is, a great program, I think. The other program was also we invest in is training a new fresh graduate from the schools. Usually they are coming from United States, from England, anywhere from the world, even from Kuwait universities, and we take all those people, train them in-house, and send them outside also. We utilize our relationship with a lot of big managers, the names has been here, all of them, and they train there for a few months, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it takes, until they get back and come and work, work for KIA or work outside of KIA. But at least something, we invest in a human. We raise their quality of training so they can be well educated and well maintain their job. The third one, which is I think it's all over the institution is the in-house training for the staff of the in-house. Also, the staff stand outside for a month or two, spending in special, because wherever they are work, they work in hedge funds or work in any other asset class, then we'll send them to the right people, to the specialist companies where they can be trained also and come back and work again. So the training has no limit, actually. And as I said earlier, we spend a lot of money for upgrade the skills of all the people who work either at the KIA or for Kuwait society in general.
Thanks. I think what we keep hearing a bit thematically over and over is both the human capital element and a bit of a creation of an ecosystem, creating a cycle that works and is regenerative. And actually, Ahmed, backstage when we were talking about some of your work, which is so fascinating to be in so many different industries and in frankly, an area that people don't spend enough time, what's going on in Africa and in all the areas in which you invest. You had given a great example, and it actually goes back to what Andrew said about making real stuff, do enough of us, a lot of people here, including myself, don't make things.
I want to give credit to the government, because without the help of the Ministry of Petroleum, we would not have been able to do that. But the example is very clear. Egypt is transitioning to a natural gas from a liquid products dominated economy. And it is building a network of natural gas. But there are a lot of communities outside of the reach of the natural gas network, because you're not going to make a huge investment of a pipeline 500 kilometers away in order to serve a small community. The investment is not, you don't have a return on that particular investment. So what the government has done is to create a framework whereby we could move natural gas via trucks from CNG stations that are nearby, 300, 400 kilometers away, and move this natural gas to this community and then build the network around this particular community. This has a huge impact, because it has a huge impact on the mining sector, who used to generate electricity out of diesel. It has an impact on agriculture, because now you can do hybrid solar and natural gas powered stations. And it has an impact on the household, because by connecting the household, you have removed the LPG, and you have a network of natural gas serving 20, 25,000 people. So you've employed a lot of fitters, you've employed a lot of truck drivers, because you need to move the CNG via truck to this particular community. You have improved the productivity of the economy as a whole by removing unuseful modes of using liquid products, and you substituted via a combination of natural gas and solar. And on top of that, you have improved the households. So you have created an entire ecosystem of around one particular point. And you have no imagination the number of people who are substantially saving a lot of money, generating employment. And I think it's a great idea. And I think the Ministry of Petroleum deserves a lot of credit for doing that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. It's interesting as we think about this ecosystem, as we've gone from macro to micro, basically, and think about intersections. Because as we've been discussing, we've focused on the broad, we've spent some time particularly on making things, but we're also in a digital economy. And there are many who say that the two are not coexisting happily together. What do you see, and Andrew, I'm going to come to you first. If you think about AI, you think about blockchain, but you also think about people that need to be in manufacturing or that have expanded natural gas pipelines in the most recent example we've just discussed. Can they intersect? How do they intersect? Is one damaging the other? Or is there a happy coexistence and development?
Well, I think we've used the word transition quite a bit, just heard about gas and energy transition in Egypt. We've also need to use the word transition when we go away from this notion of data is a problem to data is a resource, all the way up to AI. I'm on the boards of Salesforce and IBM. I'm also on the board of a bank. I'm also on the board of Aramco. I love working these intersections. I love the things I'm doing in my new role where I'm cutting across this dynamic that human capital needs to embrace. Because machines, when they get all the way to AI, cognitive computers, okay, are going to need humans. Okay, humans will coexist. Maybe we'll need less of the traditional jobs, but we'll need a lot more of the new jobs. The glass half full view of that is economic expansion brought by knowledge of the AI kind will create, the pie will get bigger, as Anna Botin said on the panel this morning, such that we'll have new types of jobs being created, which is why what the minister said about, both ministers, about training and education. What I worry and lament about is public sector training and education is lagging this development. So unless you're in countries who are forward thinking, and I'm living in the US is definitely not doing this. So the private institutions are doing it. Private universities, private schools, private enterprise. At Dow, we were actually a training school and a university to get ready for this not either or, but and. Okay, Jim Collins, right? The power of and means I can transition workers, and I'm going to need new skills in that workforce because I'm going to have new tools. And think of AI as a tool. Think of drones and robots as tools, 21st century tools. Okay, so I need to get the human-machine interface reskilled. My existing workforce, so we don't leave them behind, and of course my kids, the new workforce. And oh, by the way, there's another thing that's going on. Entrepreneurialism is becoming global. Youth is loving the idea of discovery and founding companies and creating an innovation ecosystem from schools all the way to startups, and the kingdom's doing a lot of that, but I know these countries are too. This, for me, is the new growth economy. Innovation of the founder kind. Whoever said it the other day, let the unicorns come, okay? I think this is where we need to skill our new workforce.
It's fascinating, you know, actually, as you said that, I'm reminded of a story. One of my partners at B Capital, Howard Morgan, who's a famous investor really. In the 70s, he got the first computer engineering degree from Cornell. And the view was, why would you need a degree in that? And will we do refrigeration engineering next? It's not a big thing, is it? And here we are today. And we're still facing some of those same dilemmas. Do we value education in the right way? Are we educating from the earliest stages all the way through people in their 50s and 60s and the things they really need to know for jobs of tomorrow? Education's in your portfolio. So this one, obviously, Maliki, should come to you a bit in terms of that macro level,
Yes.
because education seems to be a huge debate in the political arena.
Yes, it always is.
Always?
Always is. You know,
Always.
especially in Singapore, I'm sure in many other countries too, something goes wrong, it's because of the education system. You know, have you developed people enough? Have you trained people enough? So I think what we need to do is to acknowledge the need for us to be nimble in the education system. It's no longer one that focuses only on literacy and numeracy, but really looking at the larger picture, looking at giving students tools to be able to be used in different circumstances. We also need to start looking at the notion of interdisciplinary learning right from the very beginning to see that it's not just silo learning of different subjects, but also how you integrate those subjects, and you start that training and the mindsets of our students looking at the diversity of information, and to be able to give them tools to integrate those information. That becomes critical, because in future, whenever something comes in, you are already ready and you embrace this diversity, you embrace the notion of integration. So even at the university level, we're beginning to look at not just learning to be a medical practitioner. You need to appreciate what it means to be a doctor with regards to technology, with regards to telemedicine and stuff that relates to that. COVID is a good example of how you need to embrace technology and how technology can change lives, at the same time save lives. It is because of technology and ability to use big data, for example. In Singapore, we were able to do contact tracing, to be able to ring-fence potential infections, and all of a sudden people realize how technology can actually change the way we look at things, the way we live. And one aspect of education that we are promoting in Singapore, for example, is this new theme or mantra called "You are learning for life," right from the day you start school, because it's not just about getting to the university degree, but it's really about being ready to come back and acquire new skills whenever it's required.
I think that's actually a great segue to thinking about maybe the second half of our conversation, and Annalise is going to jump back in. But really, as you think about this development, learning for life, I love that phrase. How do we create job growth that also enhances sustainability, goals in climate change, green economy? And I think, Annalise, you share a few things with us and bring it back to the panel.
Thank you very much. What an interesting discussion. I would say that some of the things that I've heard, and it's very inspiring, is that really inclusivity, trust, and well-being define current conversations about work. Also, I was inspired by an interview recently. Larry Fink, he sees actually that ESG being integrated into every asset and every action already in the next 4 or 5 years. And I think that is really key to why a global green and digital transformation or transition offers rich opportunities, and we can already see some of the people who are leading that transition is here on the stage. And it is also very important for addressing today's concern that we understand the next 10 years, looking at 2030, because when we speak about status quo is already 2030. We are already there. What we can see from some of the data that's been running, some of the things that we have been gathered, we downloaded the last data last night, is that the green transition could be an engine of growth across many sectors. And the business case for green investment initiatives, infrastructures, and innovations, as we've heard, has never been stronger. In fact, as well, according to the UN, they estimated already back in 2018 that we will see 65 million new low-carbon jobs by 2030. And also in that mix, entrepreneurship, SMEs, because they are the backbones of our economies. But of course, in that context, again, not to forget that access to those entrepreneurs, access to finance is so crucial. And let me just round off here with the sort of wild card, because obviously being Nordic, Danish, Swedish, we've already seen the case study in Iceland. They now have a 4-day work week, and this is key to boost the bottom line for organizations, because again, a shorter work week could increase people's well-being and productivity, and of course also resulting in a greater talent retention and innovation capacity while reducing the pressure on our planet. And again here, one of the data is that if the UK would shift to a 4-day work week without reduction in pay, they could shrink the UK's carbon footprint by 127 million tons per year by 2025. So that's really staggering that the well-being of people could be combined with the well-being of planet.
Thanks, Annalise. Those are some astonishing statistics. And as we think about this movement and this effort, really it comes down to global investors embracing this. One of the organizations that has been embracing this is the One Planet Initiative, which I know KIA has been a leading proponent of. Trying to bring investment into this space and still meet your return goals, not the easiest thing in the world. How do you think about the One Planet Initiative, and what drew KIA to underwrite this so strongly?
Okay, well, KIA is really believing in climate change and those all initiatives. Back in 2017, when the One Planet Sovereign Wealth Funds created, KIA was one of those founders to this initiatives, and we bring a lot of different sovereign wealth funds, assets managers, and we took it from $3 trillion collective amount to $30+ trillion And we've been doing that in, with, organizing all the information we have with all of our partners within these initiatives. And I must say that the president of France, Mr. Macron, is really giving this initiative a lot of his attention. So every time we meet, he's there in person. He can share with us all the information that he has. Definitely, this is not an easy job. You have, to work with the government regulations. You have to, try to fund a good investment with a good return, rather than just, say, okay, I'm gonna just spend this money and no returns. This investor wouldn't really be interested to invest in that. Other initiatives, which is also established early 2020, called the SMI, and also the initiative by the Highness Royal of Prince of Wales, and KIA is also one of the founders. Same thing. We're talking about climate change, we're talking about green, we're talking about all the initiatives being discussed today and yesterday, even if been listening to what His Royal Highness, His Highness the Emir Mohamad bin Salman, when he was in the grand opening yesterday for the Saudi Green, he says a lot of those initiatives which we will be participating as a KIA in finding the way to do the green thing, to help the climate, they reduce the the temperatures, whatever, especially in our region, which has become year on year as a high record. And that's all these initiatives is very important to KIA, and will be investing in those initiatives as long as at the end it will be for the environment and for the benefit of the people who will be living, in longer than probably what we will be living. But anyway, this initiatives is not easy tasks. It's going to be take a long of time, years and years to do. But at least start. Let's start. Let's put all our force together, and then we can be reaching our goals, in the future, hopefully.
Thanks. I think, as we think about that initiative and broadly about bringing sustainability into the workforce and into the global economy, one of the last statistics Annalise gave, maybe I can use to provoke a quick fire controversy. Quick answers, but Ahmed, I'm going to start with you, but try to get everybody to give an answer. Annalise shared with us, and we've seen many other statistics that show during COVID, when people weren't going into the office, our footprint as a society, as a global enterprise, was so much lower. Low carbon, low usage of transport, et cetera. But we also were low contact, and humans aren't built that way.
That's right.
So remote work, here to stay, hybrid, or everybody's going back?
Hybrid.
And then I'll go down the road, but you get to be first.
Definitely hybrid. Yeah. In my view, that's. But there is an important point beyond this debate. I think Mr. Liveris has said something very important regarding the power of ends. I think we need to move in every investment to make sure that we improve the carbon footprint. But to think that we are going to go from 100 kilometers relying on hydrocarbon to zero is impossible. And people need and government need to influence the balance and the speed, because otherwise you will see volatility in oil markets like what's happening today. Era of underinvestment have caused a spike in oil prices, and that type of enormous volatility in markets are not useful for industry, for economies, for everybody. So people need to be careful.
Andrew, what's your quick answer on remote?
Well, it has to be hybrid, but I think it tilts to more in-presence than remote. I think humans want creativity by being together, and if the new kind of work is ecosystems around innovation, innovation occurs by us being together. okay? And I think that means it may be an 80-20 thing, it won't be 100-0, but a hybrid, yes.
Well, I want to just give a different perspective to hybrid, because hybrid has this tendency to imply that you have a mix of both. But it really depends on the circumstances, you know. In some sectors, you can go remote, and at the same time, you find your own network of relationships separately from the working environment. So therefore, what's critical is really to acknowledge the fact that human beings need interactions, human beings need socialization, human beings need to ensure the mental health and mental well-being status continues to be well taken care of. It doesn't mean that necessarily has to be the work colleagues that does that, so you can still do remote for efficiency of your work and business, at the same time manage your well-being, ensuring that there's still this network of relationship they can continue to establish. So hybrid in a different sense, I would imagine.
Got him?
Well, I would not really into remote at KIA, because I need to see all the people in the office. I need to meet with them in person. I need to see their reaction, rather than just bring one or two remotely and then everybody is staying at home. But yes, remote is good and hybrid is good in different industries, but not as a Kuwait Investment Authority manage those assets, So we do remote when we need to talk to managers who cannot come to Kuwait, for example. We'll meet them virtual, we'll discuss, we'll share all the documents virtual. But inside KIA, unless you have an really excuse that he cannot bring you to the office, then you can stay, you can work from remotely. Otherwise, no, I need everyone to be working, at their
You're voting for coming back. And look, the audience here today and the great attendance here at FII and the fun we've had talking as a panel tells you people like contact,
Yes,
as Maliki said. People like being together. So our project is to work on low carbon footprint, low impact on our environment, but not low contact. And with that, I'd love to thank the panel, thank Annalise.
And I think I just have the last word for
Sure.
looking to 2050 and what's next. I think what we've heard is seismic change is ahead for the workplace. And also some of the biggest concern, which we often hear is the human-machine partnership. But I think it will spark sustainable performance. Historically, technology has always created more jobs than it has destroyed. But we must build the capacity and skills needed today to respond what's ahead. And I think the key is really education, as we've heard, lifelong learning, equality, and access to finance, because that's the only way that we can offer inclusive opportunities for all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to the panel.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
all.
I do it.